Let me tell you something that most people completely missed in the lead up to today's quarterfinal at the 2026 Italian Open. Because on the surface, this looks like just another big women's singles match. Rybakina versus Svitolina. Two elite players on clay, high stakes, great tennis, quarterfinal pressure. But underneath all of that, there is a story that goes so much deeper than tennis. And I think it tells us something genuinely important about the sport we love, about war, about identity, and about what it truly means to take a stand. I want to talk about the handshake, or more specifically, I want to talk about why today Elina Svitolina is going to extend her hand to Elena Rybakina, and why that moment, however brief, carries an enormous amount of weight. So, here is the context because you need it. Since Russia and Belarus launched their invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, Elina Svitolina made a decision that I personally respect deeply. She stopped shaking hands with Russian and Belarusian opponents after matches. This was not a gimmick, this was not a PR move. This was a Ukrainian woman whose country was being bombed using the only platform she had, professional tennis, to make a statement. And it cost her socially. It sparked debates. It made her a lightning rod. But she stood firm. For me, that takes real courage. Now, the reason today is different comes down to one thing, and it is not just nationality on paper. It comes down to a decision Elena Rybakina made years before anyone could have predicted what was coming. She was born in Moscow, grew up in Moscow, and yes, her tennis journey started in Russia. But at 19 years old, she made a pivotal life choice. Kazakhstan's tennis federation offered her financial support and a pathway that Russian tennis simply was not providing. So she switched. She became Kazakh. And critically, this happened well before February 2022, before the invasion, before any of this political chaos consumed the sport. And I think that distinction matters enormously. Svitolina herself said it clearly. I will paraphrase what she told the press at last year's French Open. She said that Rybakina represents Kazakhstan and that she made that change years before the war even began. And then Svitolina brought up Daria Kasatkina as a reference point. Now, Kasatkina, if you have been following women's tennis closely, switched her nationality to Australian, and she also openly spoke out in opposition to the war. Svitolina said that Kasatkina's willingness to not just change her flag but to actually use her voice, to say publicly that she supports Ukraine, is what earns the handshake. It is not just paperwork, it is moral clarity. So, where does Rybakina fit into that? She represents Kazakhstan. She has not waved a Russian flag. She has not made pro war statements. And Svitolina, to her enormous credit, is thoughtful enough to make that distinction. She does not paint every Russian born player with the same brush. That nuance, that is what I find genuinely impressive here. Now, let's actually talk about the tennis, because this match is genuinely fascinating from a technical standpoint. The head to head sits at 4 wins for Rybakina, 3 for Svitolina. Rybakina leads overall. But here is where it gets really interesting. On clay, Svitolina flips the script. She has won 2 of 3 on this surface, and I think when you understand why, you will watch today's match completely differently. Elena Rybakina is one of the most physically dominant servers on the WTA tour. Her serve is a genuine weapon. The mechanics of it are extraordinary. She generates enormous racket head speed through a very efficient kinetic chain, loading through her legs, rotating the hip, then the shoulder, and releasing late through the wrist snap. On hard courts, that pace translates directly into free points. Aces, unreturnable kicks, cheap holds of serve. It is genuinely difficult to neutralize. But on clay, the surface absorbs space. The ball sits up slightly differently. It does not skid through the way it does on hard courts, which means the receiver gets a fraction more time. And Svitolina, listen, her entire game is built around taking that time and turning it into something dangerous. Her counterpunching is elite. She does not try to overpower players, she redirects pace, she changes angles, she absorbs pressure and then fires back with precision. On clay, against a big hitter like Rybakina, that style becomes a genuine tactical nightmare. At the 2025 Madrid Open, we saw exactly this. Svitolina dismantled Rybakina in the third round in what I thought was a masterclass in clay court counterpunching. She refused to be rushed. She kept the rallies going, forced Rybakina into the kind of extended exchanges where that serve advantage disappears. And she won. Convincingly. Now Rybakina got her revenge at Indian Wells this year. Straight sets, dominant performance, and yes, Svitolina shook her hand there. So that handshake precedent has already been set between these two. Today is not the first time, but the Rome clay is a different test, and the pressure of a quarterfinal at a premier event raises the stakes even further. In my opinion, the key tactical battle today is going to happen in Rybakina's service games. If Svitolina can put even one or two returns in play on big second serves, she can use the clay to extend points. And in extended points, her consistency and her defensive movement give her a huge edge. Rybakina needs to be aggressive from the baseline after the serve. She cannot allow Svitolina to reset and dictate from the back of the court. What I find compelling about this match beyond the tactics is what it represents for women's tennis right now. Rybakina is the world number 2. She is a two-time Grand Slam winner. She is arguably the most physically imposing player on the WTA tour. And Svitolina, who has been through things no athlete should ever have to go through, playing through a war, playing for her country's morale, carrying that weight every single week, is still here, still competing at the highest level, still winning on clay. That alone deserves recognition. And the handshake at the end of today's match? That is not just a sporting gesture. That is Svitolina saying, "You made the right choices, you are not my enemy, and I respect you." That is a woman who has every reason in the world to be closed off, choosing to remain principled and precise in her judgments. I am going into this match genuinely not knowing who wins. And honestly, that is the best possible feeling before a quarterfinal. Rybakina's power on any surface is terrifying, but Svitolina on clay, in form, with everything she has on the line emotionally, do not count her out. The clay court numbers back her up, her mentality backs her up, and today the story backs her up. Whatever happens when the match ends, when those two walk to the net, I want you to pay attention to that moment. Because in a sport that has struggled to navigate war, politics, and identity with any kind of grace, two women are about to show everyone exactly how it is done. That is the match, that is the moment. And that is why today's quarterfinal is about so much more than tennis.